Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Today is going to be a follow-up video to a few episodes ago where I was talking a lot about DK socks. I was talking about my first attempts at basically holding two sock yarns double to create a much thicker sock. And at that time, I had just gotten some yarn that was like self-striping and self-patterning, and I was really excited to see how that worked out. That was several weeks ago. And I have knit several pairs of self-striping and patterning DK socks. So I'm here to talk about it, how to talk about how to divide yarn, how to, estimate how long you can knit a sock, how to find pairings for heels and toes, just in case you run out, how to make your own self-striping socks if you have a bunch of like bits and bobs and you don't have any actual self-striping yarn, and the like. So when I last spoke about this, because we did not actually speak about this, I just spoke to you if you watched it. I was really excited to knit this pair of socks in the Knit Picks Felici colorway Base Jump. So Knit Picks Felici is self-striping yarn that comes in 50-gram balls, and they periodically release new colors. And back in my video before, I thought that it only happened once a year. But based on what other people have said, I think maybe they release new colors more often than once a year, like maybe seasonally. I don't know. The colors that were there this summer when I got them are still available. So, I mean, some of them might be sold out, but I think they're still available. Anyway, this first color that I'm going to show you is called Base Jump. And Base Jump was the one I was initially drawn to because I just thought that the pop of orange was really cool. So I'm going to show you the socks. Here they are. So I marled them with white. So the light orange is not part of the stripe sequence. The light orange was a separate mini skein that I had that I just thought would go nicely with the colorway because I wanted two identical socks. And I knew I was not going to be able to get two full socks that were matching all the way down to the toe, because there was only one repeat or 1.5 repeats left or something. Anyway, I figured, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide the yarn, or no, I knew that I could knit through two stripe sequences and that would almost be enough. And I knew that it would be like a drag to try and find then the beginning of the next stripe sequence. And like, I don't know, it was just going to be too much if I went all the way down to the toe. So I knew I was going to have to do the last part of the foot in the lighter orange color, which is fine. These are about a women's 7.5. So the white, green, teal, orange, navy, other green. This is like a slightly lighter teal. It's like in between these two, and then back to white and all the way through again. It's a stripe sequence. The light orange is separate. So the light orange, it wasn't actually a mini skein. I just had like a mini amount left over. It was from the January Farmer's Daughter Sock Squad. So in January, it was the orange, kind of sort of sherbet orange color. And then the mini was a pink. And I used the mini and I had almost 50 grams left over. I've used this orange a lot in these, holding it double and stuff. I've held it double with like a darker orange also for the very first Thanksgiving socks that I made. If you go back a couple episodes, again, to my first video on DK socks, which I'll link below, you'll see that. You'll also see all these yarns linked below. If you're a really adept sock knitter, you might not need a pattern for these. I basically cast on 48 stitches with a US 2.5. I like to do them ribbed, so I do the 2x2 rib. I organize the stitches symmetrically so that I'm knitting because it's magic loop, so I'm knitting the first stitch of the front and the last stitch of the front. I'm knitting the first stitch of the back and the last stitch of the back, so that the top of the foot, I can keep ribbing across that and it's symmetrically aligned. I don't know if you understand that, but that's what I did. And I initially bought the Thanksgiving socks pattern by Summer Lee, which I really like. I really like that pattern. It gives you a lot of sizes. It's basically just a basic sock in ribbed and plain. And then she also has a cabled version with cables along the top, which is super cute. And she gives you a lot of tips for marling yarn, which is really awesome. But now it's basically just a vanilla sock recipe for DK weight. So the next one I'm going to show you actually is a vanilla sock. It's just plain knitting with ribbed cuff, heel flap and gusset, and then round toe or a wedge toe. So this again, there's no cuff here. You can just see the cuff in this color. Like that kind of creates a visual cuff. Heel flap and gusset, wedge toe, where you basically do, it's like an afterthought heel to make the toe. You just decrease every other row or round. Yeah, like that. Anyway, it's pretty standard vanilla sock construction, but I did 2x2 rib. Some people have been asking me what a vanilla sock is. A vanilla sock is just a plain sock that you don't do any patterning on. This technically isn't a vanilla sock because it's ribbed, but I will show you an example of one next. So anyway, this was the first one. I like it a lot. It's very cozy. Great way to use scraps, but this is also a really fun way to use self-striping. So self-striping, attempt number 1, I was very pleased with it. Self-striping attempt number 2, this was more of a self-patterning, and this is the vanilla sock I'm going to show you. I knit a pair of socks for my friend Molly because she got a new apartment and I want to give her a housewarming present. So I made her socks because then she would be warm in her own house. And her family, she's like a childhood friend, and her family had come over to my parents' house for a barbecue a couple months ago. And I had made her these socks. I think I might have talked about them in a previous episode, in my first socks episode. Maybe I was thinking of them as a future. No, because I would have already been. I bought the yarn in Quebec. It's Drops Fable. Drops Fable is a self-patterning yarn, or you can get self-striping patterning kind of colorways. And it's harder to get Drops yarn in the US. It's some kind of European yarn, and it's pretty economical. Like almost all their yarns are really good. It's a good price, and it's wool. Like it's not like acrylic, and some of their yarns probably have acrylic in them. But they have some great, pretty economical yarns. You can get nice mohair or alpaca blends from them. Drops, DROPS. I will link Drops below. And I'll link the Ravelry page for both the first vanilla socks I made for Molly with these self-striping, and then I made these ones for Molly's mom because she saw the socks and was like, oh my gosh, will you knit me some socks? And I was like, of course I will. So I just literally used the leftovers from Molly's socks to make her mom this pair. I had about 35 grams left because I bought 2 50-gram balls of the Drops Fable because it was 50-gram balls total. So I just did the leg and then the foot in the self-patterning Drops, and then for the foot or the toe and the heel and the cuff, I used West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in Juniper, which is a contrasting color suggested for many of their other self-patterning colors, like Silent Night, which was a Christmas color originally released last year. It's one of the sparkle ones. And also goes with Mallard, which is why I got it, because I had a skein. I still have it. I haven't made socks with it. Of Mallard, which is one of the birds. They have Country Birds line, which is really cool. You can get West Yorkshire Spinners at the Woolly Thistle. It's a good deal. It's like, and they have a good Woolly Thistle. Woolly Thistle has a good price, because if you get it in a store, it's sometimes like $16, maybe $17. The Woolly Thistle has it for like $12.95. Especially if you want a few. They usually have a lot in stock. They have all the lines. Yeah, the Woolly Thistle is a good place to get it. And they, you can get like, they have the Christmas ones like in a specific place, so you can find them really easily, and they're great. I will show another pair of the West Yorkshire Spinners, or of self-striping socks with a Christmas West Yorkshire Spinner colorway next. Tongue twister. West Yorkshire Spinners. Say that 10 times fast. Don't ask me to talk faster than I already do, because I will take that challenge and run with it. These are smaller stripes than these ones were. So I went all the way through the stripes. Again, these don't match because this was with leftovers, so it doesn't matter to me. They're basically just cozy slipper socks. These fit a little less snugly than these do because they're not ribbed all the way around like these ones are. So these will stay up on your leg better, but these are much faster unless you're fast at ribbing. I definitely get into the rhythm of the 2x2 rib, and it's not an issue, but I finished this pair of socks in 24 hours. To be fair, I don't really do anything else often. And it was great. So I finished those. And those are these are kind of like a self-striping, self-patterning. They're not solid colors, which I liked because there was a lot of white already in the pattern, like already in the patterned yarn. So it went really well when I paired it with a white. The white that I usually use is, I'm experimenting with different things, but right now I've been using mostly Knit Picks Felici, which is 436 yards. It's the same as the self-striping base Felici, it's just undyed. It's not super expensive. I think it's like $8 or $10 for one of these, which you can get. It depends on the size and it depends on if you're using the white for heels, toes, and cuffs. Almost 2 pairs of socks. I can get almost 2 pairs of socks out of one big thing of Felici. I chose Felici because it's a 75-25 base, which makes it a little thinner than an 80-20 with 400 yards, so you can get more. There's more yardage and it doesn't make it too bulky. Like I think if I used an 80-20, it would be a little bit of a bigger sock, which is fine, depending on what you want. I'll report back after, maybe I'll do a couple pairs in an 80-20 and see. I also haven't used an 80-20 for the main color very much. I did in a couple of self-striping ones, but or not self-striping in the, like, I was striping the yarn myself, cooked with my leftovers, but I was holding it with a 75-25. So I can't necessarily say if it was like that much bigger. Plus I was using a variety of different yarns, not just an 80-20. So we'll talk about that another time after I've made some more of these. The next pair is, so this is a West Yorkshire Spinners holiday colorway. The color is Hollyberry. I got Hollyberry last year to make my mom some Christmas socks. And again, I had about 35 grams left over. And I got a skein of Cherry Drop, which is the darker red. So Hollyberry has, I'm just gonna show you these socks. Here are the finished socks, even smaller stripes than the last one. So you can see Hollyberry has 2 reds and 2 greens, and in between there's white flecked with green. Harder to see when it's held with white. The green is very subtle. So then Cherry Drop is the same as the darker of these 2 reds. So this is Cayenne and this is Cherry Drop. So I've used it here for the cuffs. I did a longer cuff. Instead of 10 rounds, I did 15 because I had a full skein of Cherry Drop, like a big ball of Cherry Drop. And so I was like, well, I can use that as much as I want of that. And so I did a bigger cuff so that the leg would be longer. Traditional heel flapping gusset with slip stitches, plain foot, ribbed top, round toe. I didn't run out this time. So to get about a 7.5, 8 women's, I do 60 rounds past the heel turn. So as soon as I pick up the stitches, including the gusset, it's 60 rounds before the toe, including those gusset decreases. And I usually do 40. This one has 35 rounds from cuff to heel, like all the way from the top. This one has 40. I usually do 10 and then 10 of the cuff and then 30 and then 60. So it's total 10, 30, 60. So 100 rounds of the 2x2 ribbed stuff, and then the toe and the heel are not counted in that. This one again had 30 total. There was 20 rounds of the leg and then 10 rounds of the cuff. Again, these are ribbed at the top, but not on the leg. This one had 35. So if you hold them up, 40 versus 35, this is a little longer, but not that much. And then 35 versus 30. So these are a little shorter, more like, these feel like slippers, especially because they're not gonna be as tight on your leg. You could probably fit this in a boot if you have a lot of room in that boot. I don't think I would. I generally don't wear hand-knit socks with boots unless I'm not gonna be doing a lot of walking, because if you walk a lot, the friction from the back of the heel of your shoe, or especially your boot, because it comes up even higher, can really wear on the heel flap. So before I started like wearing my socks and my Blundstones, or other boots, usually I wear Blundstones because they're comfortable. I thought that when it meant blow through the heel, you were gonna blow through the bottom. And I'm sure some people do blow through the bottom, but I would assume that if I were to blow through a heel, it'd because I was wearing them with my boots and I blew through the back of the heel flap because those stitches got like really pilly and they got all frictioned down, whatever you call that. And then they ripped. So that is what I would see as the biggest issue with wearing your hand knits with shoes, anything on your heels. So I wear house slippers. I'll take them off. These are wool felt clogs and they're made by Glare Ups. I wear a size 37, maybe a 38 in a clog. These are a 39, so I can wear them with thicker socks. My mom got these for me. She picked them out and I really like them. At first I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, no, I like them. And I wear these with hand knit socks. So today I'm wearing the Spinifex socks from the Handmade Sock Society that was a toe up pattern. I do not like to knit toe up socks, but I did it because I wanted the pattern to point the correct direction. Didn't love them. I didn't love the construction. They do fit, but it took me ages to do the bind off because it just was not stretchy enough. And in hindsight, I probably should have just gone up to like a size 4 needle and bound off with like a size 4, but I did a tubular bind off, which was very time consuming, but it is pretty. It did flare. I'm gonna say it. It did flare a little bit. And now I feel very secure in my preference of cuff down socks. So that's good. Yeah. And you know, if another thing you can do if you're worried about running out of yarn is to do an afterthought heel. So then you just knit to the end of your yarn and you figure out where to place the heel based on measurements. And then your leg is as long as it can possibly be based on how much yarn you have. And that's a good idea if you have like a 50-gram skein, divide it in half and do that, and use a contrasting color for the heels. If you use a contrasting color for heels, toes, and cuffs in a sock, you're saving yourself about almost 20 grams of the main color, because it's a lot more yarn than you think it is. But like if you have a 20-gram mini, that's usually enough to do, at least on a women's sock, to do heels, toes, and cuffs on both socks with 20 grams or 2 10-gram minis. And you can save yourself a lot of your main colors. So when I do that on my socks, it means I usually have a substantial amount of yarn left over. And so one thing you can do, this is my next tip, is make your own it's not self-striping, make your own striped DK socks. So first I'm gonna show you the bag that I have of scraps. This is Vineyard Vines bag it's just like a really nice, I don't really shop there. I think I went there to get my brother a shirt in like the Georgetown Vineyard Vines years before I lived in I didn't live in Georgetown, before I lived in Washington. I have a Vineyard Vines sweatshirt that I really like because it's like a really light sweatshirt. It doesn't have fleece. It has like terry cloth inside, so it's very comfy. But this is the bag I use. This doesn't matter. To store, that is all a tangent. This is where I put my sock minis. So I put any scraps from socks in here. So this was the Farmer's Daughter like February color. I knit a whole pair of socks in these, and I knit some heels, toes, and cuffs in another pair of socks. This is the yak base. Great. I'm not gonna like describe every color. I use that in some DK socks. There's still a lot left. You can also weigh your scraps to know. I just knit a pair of socks in this. This is junk yarn and vintage Barbie. Love that 80-20 blend. Some more leftover yak sock. I dyed this myself. A lot of these I just dyed myself and used in various projects and have various amounts left over. It's probably more than half a skein there. That's an 80-20. This is an 80-20. Again, I made a pair of socks in that, but used different heels, toes, and cuffs, so there's lots left over. I dyed this years ago. Never used it. That's a half a skein. A lot of stuff like this just hanging out. I've recently made this pair of socks, and pair of socks with this yarn. This is the leftovers. Then I just had a lot of like, most of these, that's not dyed. These aren't dyed by me. Most of these are just dyed by me. Like I bought a bunch of minis to dye up for socks sets, and I got way too many, and so I just made some, like I would make doubles of everything and just keep one of each. There's just like a plethora of these. I didn't dye all of them. That's from the Farmer's Daughter. These are all Farmer's Daughter's minis that I didn't end up using in the socks, but all these are like, I did those. There's a purple. Again, this is John Arbin Exmoor sock yarn. There's some leftovers. Those are leftover from my Spinifex socks. This is that orange from the base jump socks. I'm still not out. There's a lot of this. Again. Okay, I said I wasn't gonna go through all these, and then I did. Self-striping. That's kind of like a variegated tunnel. This is the rest of the base jump. It's gone. I'm not gonna get it. There's a little left. Yeah, that's not even all of them, but I have this mini bag, and so you can pick and choose and make your own stripe sequences based on what you have for minis or leftover skeins. And I mean, each stripe, basically, if you want to make sure you're going to have enough for all your socks, knit one stripe, like weigh the yarn first, knit a stripe and see how much you have left, subtract what you have left from what you had before, and that's how much each stripe takes, unless you're doing a round with that's like around the gusset, that's a little wider. Definitely make sure you know what you're doing there and you're not going to run out. Because you don't want to run out and like not be able to finish the second sock. I would divide everything in half to make sure that your socks will be matching. So this is just like a bag that I have that I pick through every time I want to do something like this, striped socks or whatever. So this is the next pair I'm working on. This is another Christmas sock. So these ones are for my grandparents, it's for my grandma. And then I'm making these for my grandpa because I didn't have more self-striping Christmas yarn. So I was like, I'm gonna DIY this. Hopefully he doesn't mind that they're like crazy. Cause I really that's the cherry drop, but like that's Knit Pick Stroll, that's hand dyed 80/20, that's the Spinifex sock celery color from Farmer's Daughter's August. That's hand dyed. This is Gray's Knit Pick Stroll, Dove Heather, hand dyed, and then the sequence all repeats again. And then the heel's in Dove Heather, so is the stripe around the heel. This is in that green. So this one is longer. This is 60 rounds between the top and the heel. And then I did 70 rounds after the heel. I'm always surprised at how like I assume that feet are radically different sizes. Like men's feet are way bigger than women's feet. Or there's like a much bigger difference between like me, a size 7.5, and like Monica, who's got a size 10 foot, but like there's not. And so I had my dad try this on, and I was really surprised because I was at like 60 rounds, and I was like, wow, that's almost long enough. And so I was very pleased that this ended up. Of course, I didn't have my precise scale, and I like weighed them on my mom's sourdough scale, which just goes to single grams. So I like ran out of this, and you can see on the top that first stripe is a lot longer on the first sock than on the second, but it's fine. And I'm partially through the heel here. I use the locking stitch markers to count my rows, so that my socks will always be the same. And there's just white yarn in there, but in my sock bag I have all the like scraps in there. I didn't end up using this one, but I basically just pulled all the red and green scraps I could find, and then I pared it down. This is a big one, but there's like small balls in there. That's left over from the self-striping, but these are the colors. There's the green, there's a bunch of reds, a bunch of greens, and then this bright red. And then white is the base. So it's really working. I'm doing about 10 rows per stripe, and it looks just like self-striping, except that there's a lot of random colors, you know? It's great. As long as you have enough yarn. And each stripe, again, only takes like 2 grams of yarn or something. So you really can go a long way if you keep tiny little balls. Or you can make like scrappy socks or a scrappy hat or a scrappy blanket or whatever you want if you've got lots of scraps. Like, it's a good way. This is just a good way to stash bust. So before I leave you, I'm gonna show you a little bit about the next pairs I'm gonna be working on and how I chose them. Okay, so this is my Woolly Thistle sock bag from this past summer. Love this bag. This was exclusive to the sock bag. I don't know what they call it, but hopefully they do it again next year because it was great. So I made a pair of self-striping socks recently, and I would show them to you, except I don't have them because I gave them to somebody when I was in Baltimore. I made them from this. So I've divided this into 2, which is why they look different. I wound the rest, and then I balled up half of that. So this is from online, which is kind of like, you can often find it in stores next to like the Regia or the Regia or like whatever, self-striping, West Yorkshire Spinners type of yarns, self-striping yarns. I got this at Romney Wools in Toronto a month ago-ish when I was there. I was like I really liked this colorway, and I love self-striping sock yarn because it's always nice to have some vanilla socks on the needles. So I made a pair of socks, used Juniper from West Yorkshire Spinners as the heels, toes, and cuffs. And this was fun. It was not self-striping, it was self-patterning. So again, this has a lot of white in it, so it'll be interesting to see how it works up against a white background as well. So these I had more left over. I have like 40 some grams of each of these, so these can be like longer socks, probably. And we'll see how that goes. That's probably gonna be my next pair. Again, with Juniper, heels, toes, and cuffs. I'm gonna see how many pairs of heels, toes, and cuffs I can get out of one 100 gram ball of Juniper. I've already done 2, at least, and I have so much left. So I think I can probably get like, I can definitely get 5, maybe 6 or 7 pairs of heels, toes, and cuffs just out of one ball of West Yorkshire Spinners. Then this is another self-striping colorway. Oh, I was gonna say I lost the tag, but I didn't. It's right here. This is Knit Picks Felici in Under the Sea. Again, it's just 50 grams because I like to just get the one ball. And again, I could have made longer socks with this, but I wanted them to be identical. So I think with this one, I'm not gonna have any hangups about them being identical. I'm just gonna knit. I'm gonna divide the ball in half and then knit as far as I can. I probably won't even have to do that because I know that 50 grams is more than enough for the body and the foot of it, like the leg and the foot, minus heels, toes, and cuffs. For this, for my contrasting bits, I'm going to use this, which is also it's a yak. It's 70% wool, 20% yak, 10% nylon. It's called Bear Paw Sock, and again, it's from the Farmer's Daughter. I've bought this base before from Wool to Die For and dyed up on it, and the light or the undyed color is this. So it's the yak base is like this beautiful kind of like beigey grayish brown color. I really like it. I would totally make socks in just the undyed color, but so the over dyed colors are all on this kind of brown. This was the May color. It came with a copper mini, which I didn't use in the socks. I made the Bluebird Cafe socks from Miss Handmade Life. That's a Miss Marple pattern. I like Miss Marple, so I was making those socks. And this was, the colorway was called Say Hello to My Little Friend. I don't know where they get their names. Sometimes it really makes sense, like the August colorway, which was like a light green, was called Cool as a Cucumber. And I was like, and this was the mini, the undyed mini. It was great. And I was like, that makes sense. What is Say Hello to My Little Friend? Like, I don't know what that means. So anyway, these guys are gonna go together. We'll see how that works up. And then no, I didn't dye this. This is Knit Picks Hawthorne, which is an 80-20 blend. It's called Alameda. So it's blue, purple. I've used this. This is a beautiful tonal. I used it to make mittens for my friend Erin, who still wears them all the time. She's very knit worthy. Erin, yeah, they're white. And this is the color of the, like on the back of the hand and the palm, and then there was a pink variegated that I used with the white on the cuff. They were colorwork mittens, like really fine gauge colorwork mittens. And I think I might actually use that color. I should have brought it, it's in my room. It's called Rose City, and it's like light pink and dark pink. Also Hawthorne. I think I'm gonna use that for the heels, toes, and cuffs because I have half a skein probably left. I also made mittens with just the Rose City as the contrast against a black, I think it was with palette, Knit Picks palette. They look so cool. The variegated against a white or black for color work is really cool. If you've never done that, you should try it because it looks amazing. And like a self-striping would look really cool, like a gradient. One thing I really want to do is make like a yoke sweater, like Tin Can Knits Compass or something that's like really structured, like a really structured yoke pattern with like a really neutral base and then a self-striping colorway and as the yoke, or like Spin Cycle or something. I did that once. I made a Spin Cycle yoke. I made Jennifer Stengass's New Leaf for my mom, with like a fawn colored natural Vermont Shetland and mohair blend, and then like I used Castaway, Spin Cycle dyed in the wool for the yoke. It was super cool. And I would like to try doing that with a Crazy Zelber ball, because those are kind of like Spin Cycle, but it's like you get double the amount for the same prices or less than you would pay for one skein of Spin Cycle. You should support Spin Cycle if you can afford to, because they are so great. Those yarns are so soft and beautiful, and they do sometimes have factory seconds sales. If you get on the like email list for Spin Cycle, you can check that out and get skeins for like 20 bucks. And there will be like something really small wrong with them, and they'll tell you what's wrong with them on the tag, and it's not like significant. Like you can definitely still knit with it. There might just be like a knot, or the ply goes the other way halfway through the skein or something, and they can't sell it at full price. It's like going to the chocolate factory and getting the factory seconds, which are like cosmetically seconds. They're not like seconds in taste. They taste delicious. There's a chocolate factory in Burlington, Vermont, where everybody gets their like chocolate for Christmas and holidays and stuff. And you just go to the factory seconds bin, because it's like 50% off the regular price per pound, and you should get a big bag. It's always still more expensive than I think it's gonna be when I go get a bag of them, because caramels are really heavy, and it's still like $17 to $23 a pound depending on the day you go. I don't know. Anyway, factory seconds, great. Spin Cycle factory seconds you can get. Those don't have nylon. Don't make socks with those. Unless like Andrea Mowry has a pair of socks with those. I don't think they would be very hard wearing. The Spin Cycle is plied, but I wouldn't. Let's just say if I were making a pair of socks with Spin Cycle, I would use a different yarn for the heels and toes, because I would want those to have nylon. I mean, there are 100% wool sock yarns that I would use. I've used the Garth and Snowdonia, although I didn't use that on the heels and toes. But the heels and toes, I used 100% wool for that. It was just like twisted it was twisted like this. It looked just like a merino nylon sock blend, because the twist was high and it was very strong, tightly plied merino. So if that's the case, like Madeline Tosh sock, 100% merino. Malabrigo sock, 100% merino. Garth and Organic Snowdonia. Snowdonia is 100% wool. It's not merino, but it's great. But yeah, people have, actually several people have asked me how I feel about wearing socks with no nylon in the yarn, and I don't have a lot of experience, because I know that I am a hard wearing sock person. I don't know if you get the sense, like watching me on YouTube, that this is true, but I'm very like, I move through the world quickly and energetically. So, you know, like if I go to my room to get something, I run there. I don't like leisurely walk. I don't do anything leisurely. I mean, sometimes I do, but generally I'm, oh, what's that? A plane? I'm usually pretty hard on my body, including on my like socks and my clothes. Like I'm, you know, I'm not thoughtful about things in that way. So I choose hard wearing sock yarns for myself for that reason, because I don't want to blow through. And I'm careful with my socks in that, like, unless I'm gonna just like be sitting around for a while, I wouldn't wear my hand knit socks in my boots. I do sometimes, but I pick socks that I know are like tough as nails, like bulletproof sock yarns for that, because I don't want to wreck my nice ones. And again, like my hand knit socks have a hierarchy. Like sometimes the yarn is way more expensive, or it's like way more comfortable, and I'm like, those gotta stay, like they have to stay nice, inside only, no shoes. Whereas there's some that I'm like, okay, whatever. And I have so many hand knit socks. I don't give socks away that often, because I thought when I started knitting them that like people had radically different size feet, and if you gave away socks, they would just like not fit anyone but you unless you measured their foot. I now know that this is not true, but it's always been my dream to like have a place where I live that has like a bucket of socks, like not a bucket, but like a beautiful basket or like vase of socks, like in the living room. And if you have people over and they have cold feet, like whatever, they can put on a pair of socks, and then there's a dirty bucket when you're done, and you wash them and hang them up on the line and put them back in the bucket. And I am moving in a few weeks, and I'm gonna live. I didn't know what my living situation was gonna be when I moved, because I haven't lived in an apartment for a long time. I lived in an apartment in Toronto with a roommate, my like best friend from college. And then I lived in an apartment by myself for a year in Philly, which I hated. And that's why I moved into the dorm to be an RA. And I saved a ton of money because I lived in a dorm, shared a bathroom with a bunch of college freshmen. That was not that fun, but you got through it and it was worth it. And then I lived with a family last year, and I've kind of been home in between a lot. I kind of like go away and come back to Vermont. And so I assume that someday I'll come back to Vermont for like real and live here forever because I like it. And I actually really like my parents. Some people don't like their parents, but I like my parents a lot. I like living with them. I like since I've been home and I'm not really working, I like do a lot of stuff for my mom. I walk the dog. I go shopping. I make dinner. I make a lot of bread. So anyway, that's a tangent. I am gonna live with 2 girls. Women. We're all women. All of us are like in our 20s, and I'm excited. And so like 3 young like working professionals in Baltimore, we're all gonna live in this house together that we just signed the lease for yesterday. Really excited. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can finally have my bucket of socks. And just like everyone can just wear socks all the time. And one of the girls is a knitter and the other one is creative. She's a creative person in her job, and she has like a degree in graphic design. And so I'm so excited. I think it's gonna be a really good time. And me and one of them are gonna knit a lot. I assume that the third one is gonna learn how to knit. You're around it that much. I can't imagine you don't learn how to knit. But yeah, I'm just looking at the clock. It's just been daylight savings. So it's like only 2:30 right now, but it looks like it's 5 o'clock. And I have to walk Hobbs before it gets dark. So I'm gonna take him to what is crackling? It's like a weird thing about living in a house. Like you never know what's crackling. It's like, is there a mouse in there or is it just like at the floor? I don't know. There's probably not a mouse, but could be. My dog would probably catch it. Hobbs is like bred to kill mice and rats, so he would probably. Well, he wouldn't find it in a cabinet because it's closed. He's never caught a mouse inside. Hobbs is wired to like chase things and catch them, but he doesn't really know what to do. I mean, he kills them. If he catches a chipmunk, he usually kills it, but which is sad. But then he doesn't really know. Like he doesn't eat it. He just is like, oh, the game of chase is over. What do I do now? So I don't know what he thinks when he kills an animal. I always feel really bad when it happens, so I'm sorry if that got really morbid and you didn't want to hear that, but that's what dogs do. So anyway, Hobbs and I are gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna try and finish these pretty soon because I got the second one of these because my mom is sending the package to my grandparents for Christmas like next week because postal delays are going to be crazy around Christmas, and they live in Alberta, which is in Canada, so you really have to accommodate for like going to another country. That could really take a while to get there, so hopefully those are done in the next day or 2. But I designed a sock recently. Sorry, I'm not showing it to you. I have one pair done. I designed a sock recently and I'm knitting a bunch of samples of it, and I really like knitting that pattern and I can't stop, and I'm knitting my second pair right now. And Coop Knits Sock Yeah, which is really nice yarn. I had some failures with that yarn the first 2 times I tried to knit with it because it's a 75-25 blend and it is really thin. It's like West Yorkshire Spinners thin. So the first pair I did twisted rib cuff, and I could really like not even get it around my ankle because twisted rib is, especially if you cast on tightly, twisted rib can be really tight. I'd had the same problem with John Arbin Exmoor sock yarn. The twisted rib cuff was just too tight. So learn my lesson with that. And then I tried to knit it again with like just a 1x1 ribbed cuff, and I used a larger needle. That fit fine, but then only 64 stitches around the foot. I was doing like, it was mostly vanilla, but there was like a lace section on one of the sides of the sock. And again, I got like halfway through that sock and I was like, I put it on and it was just like pulling so tightly. The stitches were being pulled apart so tightly on the top of my foot that I was like, I think this sock needs to have more stitches, or you need to have a pattern that's going to stretch properly, like naturally. So I probably did both, which was maybe a mistake. But it doesn't matter. The sock fits great. It's a little, like, it's definitely not tight. I used 68 stitches, and I didn't want to go all the way to 72 because I thought that would be too big, but I used 68 stitches, and there's this kind of like lacy pattern on the front, so it doesn't really stretch across your foot. But anyway, I'll show them sometime. I don't know where I'm going to, if I'm going to release a pattern, where I'm going to release it, if it's going to be for money. We'll see. anyway, I think that's all for now. Thank you for watching my self-striping DK socks video. I hope it was enlightening. I hope you try doing it. I think it's great for using scraps. If you have like 35 to 40 grams of a sock yarn left, which I think a lot of people do after knitting a pair of socks, this is such a great way to use them. Like, use that yarn as the leg and the butt, and you just make sure you divide it in half so that if you run out, you're not gonna like have one sock that's done and one sock that's like the foot is half done. And then make sure that you choose a contrasting color for your heels, toes, and cuffs. It's like, you got a solid, you don't need 20 grams. I don't think you need 20 grams, but you probably need like 18 grams of that, each color of that. So, and make sure you have plenty of your base color. Like, I've used this. I've also used variegated colors as my base color. But yeah, 35 grams can get you 2 socks that are done except the heels, toes, and cuffs. So yeah, utilize your stash. I'm gonna be doing some more just like striped vanilla socks using my leftovers, do some crazy socks. Now that I've learned to like weave in ends as I knit, I'm doing that. I learned that from Earth Tones Girl, linked below. Earth Tones Girl Denise is great. She has a great YouTube channel. And she has a ton of like awesome information on how to do socks. She's got some patterns. She's got these amazing YouTube tutorials about not just like the parts of a sock and how to construct them, but like tips on this and tips on that. And like one of them is how to knit in your ends if you're doing a striped sock with your leftovers so that you don't have to weave them all in. And that was like life-changing for me. That video was so good. So no, I'm not scared of knitting. Like, I made this pair of scrappy socks and I had to weave in every single end, and I made them for my friend, and I was like, I hope none of the ends pop out on you. Like, that would just suck if there's just like a hole in one of your socks because the end wasn't woven in properly. So anyway, I'm just rambling now. Thanks for watching. This is like much longer. I thought this was gonna be like a 20-minute video because all I have is like 4 pairs of socks, but of course I went on tangents and I went into great detail. So anyway, thank you for watching. This has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Bye.